Yes.
Okay. Hello everybody. We are delighted to welcome you to a new talk in collaboration with RLadies Abuja. Our meetup for today is about performing automatic NLP with LLMs using MOL. And this talk will be hosted by Edgar Riuz, software engineer at POSIT PVC. So I will start by introducing RLadies Paris. We are a local chapter of the global open source community RLadies Plus Global. RLadies Paris was founded on 2016, and our goals are to provide a supportive and encouraging network for our users and to promote learning and collaboration in the R community. You can follow us on our networks. We are social networks. We are very active on Meetup, LinkedIn, YouTube. So feel free to scan these QR codes, please. Let me now talk about RLadies organizing team. I'm Shaima Bouganmi, data scientist at Ipsos in Paris and also organizer at RLadies Paris with Mona Belaid, a data consultant and also RLadies Plus global team member. I will now let Ifouama maybe to introduce RLadies Abuja.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, Nishama. Good to meet you and see you, Luana. My name is Ifoma Mboga. I'm one of the co-organizers for RLadies Abuja. So, RLadies Abuja is a local chapter of the Global RLadies organization. It was founded in 2020 and is based in the capital of Nigeria, that's Abuja. So, we're a community that's interested in our programming, data science, analytics, and growing basically to promote diversity and increase representation of women in the global Arab community. So these are social media handles. You can scan it and get to know us a bit better. We do have monthly meetups the meetup is where we share upcoming events. We can go to the next slide. So I will talk about our team. So I work with three other amazing ladies, Bilikisu, Zinat, and Queenette. Together, we try to build an all-inclusive community. So Bilikisu is a data scientist, Zinat is a public health specialist, and Queenette is a food technologist. Thank you so much. Good to have all of you here on this webinar.
Thank you, Fouama. So who is today's invited speaker? Edgar is a software engineer at POSIT. He serves as a member of the Teddy Models team. Mrs. Rose is also the maintainer of Sparkler, driven by a mission to help data analysis succeed. Edgar focuses on building open source tools, teaching workshops, and authoring technical articles. His contributions to the community include the development of specialized websites, cheat sheets, and interactive demos. So before we start, I have to remind you that we plan to record the session today. So if you prefer not to be recorded, as Mona said, please turn off your video. And if you have a comment or a question, please leave a message in the chat box. Thank you for your attention. Edgar, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited about sharing about MAL. Can you see my screen, the shared screen? Okay. This was an interesting project because it wasn't something that we kind of planned on doing, but it came about almost like a side project and then became this package that I'll give you some more background here in a second. So yes, NLP. What is NLP? It's natural language processing. In a world where everything is an analysis, I still don't know why they decided to call it P for processing instead of A for analysis, but it's basically the analysis of words, right? Of written text. Being able to analyze something such as sentiment and things like that. And um, the idea is that in order for us to be able to create models that analyze written word, it becomes a challenge, right? So let me go here to the first slide. And yes, I included the link to this presentation here, to this deck in the chat. So if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome to. You can skip ahead if you want. This material is yours. I have it in a repo that's going to be shared. So more than welcome to look through the materials. Anyway, a typical natural language processing project requires several steps. The first is to collect and label the training data, right? Typically, you have to tokenize the training data and feed it through a model that then you're going to have to fit. And this usually becomes sort of a circle, right? You relabel the data and look at the model and things like that. And that's your tuning and validation, right? So you go through that cycle and that takes a while, right? And then if there's a new language, right, that I'm not talking about Python or R, I'm talking about like a different language like English or Spanish or French, this becomes another thing, another project, because you have to retrain all the tokens. You have to figure out if it's a different task that you want to and point your NLP to. Let's say you go from sentiment analysis, which is how does the customer feel about this particular product, to I'm gonna want to write something about extracting some data from the text, like what is the customer talking about, right? What kind of product? You have to retrain the whole thing, right? So it becomes a bit of a challenge. But so the idea is if we could like skip all this stuff, right? And that's where Mall comes in. Mall is a very simple package, right? Because all it's doing is basically integrating an LLM, right? With your data. It's basically just bringing them together in the most efficient way possible. That was mainly the big task that I had. So the idea is that you don't have to train a model, right? Because you already have a trained LLM. Remember I mentioned tokens, all that tokenization, all that's actually what the LLM is, right? It's a large language model, right? So you already have a model that's general purpose, right? So the idea is that you can use that as long as it's something that we would be able to run either locally or we have access to, so we don't need to train it. So we don't have to worry about labeling our data. And also with LLMs, they're actually trained in multiple languages. So that gives us a lot more abilities to do different things, as well as have the results to be more correct. And the thing with Mall, again, the main kind of work that I kind of had was to make sure that it felt as ergonomic as possible, right? That it kind of fit well with the rest of how we would work with data, especially using R and dplyr, for example, right? We're getting very used to being able to pipe, our different commands, our different transformations, and these have become transformations. I also wanted to mention that the idea to do this is not something that just came out of the blue. There's functions, SQL functions that I saw for the first time in a company called Databricks. They have these SQL commands that you say that you would use the functions inside a SQL call that would run the sentiment, for example, and that when they have their own AI and they would kind of score that for you inside SQL. So where I came in was the idea, okay, what if we could do that in R, right? Because all they're doing is basically running the data from the SQL table against a model and running some prompting and then getting the results. So what if we could do that? And what if we could do that locally, right? Because at the time when Mall came out, most of the LLMs available as APIs weren't as I don't know, favored by companies. There's a lot of kind of reticence to be able to kind of send the data over, which is less and less now. But still, it's still nice to be able to run something locally. And essentially what it does, as I mentioned, the job here is to be able to have the data that you're using and have it run row by row and have it return a result in the most consistent way possible. That was the other piece of the work from all, that we wanted the results to come back with this three, for example, here, the sentiment, right? We want to know how does the customer feel about this product. You see the three responses here. How do we kind of make the LLM to submit to just using those three responses becomes a bit of a challenge. And that's another part of the work, right? To make sure that we give the correct instruction to the LLM in order for it to return the expected results. And then we can do some processing internally, which I'll explain more about it here in a bit. So what we do is one of two things with Mall, as far as how it interacts with the backend, either like OpenAI or Olama or Gemini or this whatever service you would use. If the backend, right, if your LLM models support batching, then we use the system prompt to give it the instructions. In this case, what you see is the instructions that we're using for to define the sentiment piece, right? So we say we send that command one time, and then each of the user prompts become the row of information for that particular line, right? So each of this product missing, a write broken, it works. All this becomes a single call that is batched inside the bigger call, and that all goes to OpenAI, which supports it, for example, and then we get the results back. So it makes it where we reduce the number of tokens we're actually paying for. If the LLM doesn't support batching, typically it's going to be your local LLM. Then what we do is essentially just append the information from the row that you see here to the prompts, right? So it doesn't really matter since we're sending that much data, right? Because usually it's a local one, but we're sending more data. So that's how it works. It runs through and iterates through every single one of your rows and sends the same prompt, but with the different information from that row. So how do we be able to set it up? For local models, which is what I normally use, I use Olama, and Mall integrates with Olama really well. There's a package called Olama R that Mall installs as one of its dependencies. So all you have to do is essentially download Olama in your computer, on your laptop or PC, and you can see that it actually supports macOS, Linux, and Windows. So it's easy and it's very easy to install. And then using Olama R, I'm assumingly that you already have installed Mall in your computer. You just say Olama R pool Llama 3.2, and it'll pull that specific model, right? So Olama, all it does is essentially provides the infrastructure for you to be able to interact with your LLM. And then you still have to have an LLM, right? And in this case, the LLM that I recommend is Llama 3.2. So you call that pull command and gets it for you. The only thing is that this is not the only way to pull it, right? You can actually go to there's a CLI for Olama. There's also the GUI that comes with Olama. So you can do it a bunch of ways, but here, just giving you these instructions to make it easier. And then what you do is back in your R session, you load library Mall, and then you use a command called LLM use. and then you say Olama, which is for the Olama integration, and then the model that you want to use, because you can have multiple different models installed in your laptop. So you say, this is the model I want to use. And once you run that for the rest of your session, it's going to be using Olama as the backend. While Llama 3.2 has been really the best one that I've seen because it actually has a really good balance, in my opinion, between the size of the model. It can run basically in any laptop um, versus its efficacy. Llama has gone through several iterations from 3 to 3.1 to 3.2, and 3.2 has been great. There is a more recent one, but unfortunately, the smaller like file for it, I think it's 3.3, it's like 24 gigabytes. So unless you have a lot of RAM, it's really hard to run. But if you do, great, use 3.3 for sure. Also, as per the website, let me see if I can go to it real quick. As per the website, you can see it here. If you scroll down, it does say the supported languages, right? So it specifically has the languages that it does support, although it says that it has other languages that is part of its collection, but it doesn't necessarily maybe too good at it. Just for kicks and giggles, at one point, I tried to do something using the Klingon language, and it actually did a good job. So, it may work, it may not, be on the 8 languages that it's been trained on. And why is this important? Well, obviously, because we're in an international crowd. I grew up speaking Spanish. Now, living in a country who speaks English. And so there's a lot of different needs that we're going to have depending on the area that we live in. Sorry, didn't mean to click there. So yes, Llama 3.2, and against a 2 gigabyte file size for the 3 billion parameters model, and that's the one I definitely recommend, and that's the one I'm going to be using today. Next, you can actually interact with a remote API, just like I mentioned. If you want to use ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT per se, but like GPT models like GPT 4.0 or whatever is the latest one. You can use Elmer. Elmer is a great integration tool for LLMs that as soon as we added this functionality to Mall, meaning that interacting with Elmer makes it much easier to, whenever there's new models that come out that we want to integrate with, we can easily, have Mall use it through Elmer once Elmer has the backend. So if tomorrow there's a better Olama, installation or software out there that we could use, it would be very easy for Elmer to have it, and then Mall can use it. Another thing is that if you want, for every time to whenever you open your R Studio or Positron or just your R session, you can have inside your R profile an option call that will set this connection immediately once you log in, right? So if you don't want to use LLM use every time, you can actually have it in your R profile, so that way it uses the same one through every session. So again, going back to local versus remote, why would you want to do local? Just again, data privacy, right? Everything that you run locally will stay locally. The only thing that I would say is that the speed is absolutely slower. But going back to the very beginning about how long it takes to train an NLP, even when it takes a long time for a run to happen, it's still faster than the hours we would have spent creating the NLP model and then trying to run it. It's just like it pays for itself when it comes to that. So if it takes 10 minutes to run, it's still a better option than to take 2 hours to build the NLP. Having said that, what I would say is where you really want to kind of think about, oh, maybe I do need to use a more sophisticated one, is in the model quality and the quality of results. You always have to check your results, right? If the results come back as really not good because something more specific, maybe more specialized that you would need that Llama is not, excuse me, Llama 3.2 is not trained on, you may want to consider something where you integrate with something remote, as long as you have the API key, right? That's the other piece. On the remote side, yes, it's better, but you need to pay, sorry, and you need to have a different setup, and of course, it's going to be faster. As far as Llama and Llama 3.2, it's been really good, like I said, and it would definitely get us really far when it comes to initial NLP tests. I feel like it's going to be good for most of the tasks, but if we hit a wall, we can definitely go remote. So the available functions. Just realized I haven't been looking at the. Okay, so no questions. Okay, so the available functions, it comes with a very small, talking about MAL, comes with a very small data set. It's just 3 rows just for us to see what it does. And this data set is what I'm going to use to review the other functions. The first one is sentiment, the one I've been talking about initially, and we saw the examples of it. The only thing that I can add to it is that you can customize the options to the different responses, and that way, what MAL does is tells the LLM that these are the responses that are valid, and it actually does work. So, the responses from an LLM sentiment that you may want may be already translated, sentiment. Like instead of yes or positive or negative, maybe in Spanish it would be positivo, negativo. You may want to do that, and typically the LLMs do pick up on it and gives you the correct result. So, and if not, the other good thing is because it's piped, right? Since we're talking about dplyr, you can always do a translation directly, a case when, and have your result. So it all fits really well. Summarize is another one. So if you want, again, if it's very long review and you want it summarized, you can easily do something like this where you tell the LLM to summarize it for you, and then you give it how many words are max, and then it'll do its best to stay within that number of words. Then classify, just as it says, what kind of, in this case, what kind of category does the review falls in? You see, this review says this has been the best TV I ever used. So TV, I regret buying this laptop. So it's a computer. It's cut off here, but it says, I'm not sure how I feel about my new washing machine. So it's appliance. So you see how each of these, the LLM tries its best to fit it inside one of the categories. For example, if we didn't have appliance as one of our options, and the LLM that they're using and that particular run, it doesn't know what to return, or it actually returns something different. Like, I don't know how I feel about my washing machine and returns washing machine, then automatically MAL, because these are the only two valid, will mark this one as NA. Like it will make sure that only the labels that you give it will be in your data set. And anything that doesn't fit, like the LLM just decides to go on its own, as we know they do all the time, MAL will reject that and will just give you an NA that you can then investigate. So check for NAs after you run these kinds of commands. But feel assured, though, that you're not going to get responses that are outside of what you specified, because MAL kind of works as a gatekeeper for that. LLM extract. In this case, what we want is to pull out something. One is classify as something. This is pulling out something. In this case, we want to pull out the product name or what kind of product it is. So you see, it's not saying computer, it's saying laptop, right? It's actually pulling out the product name, right? So that's what you can do easily. Again, to run it against these three rows, of course, was really fast, but hopefully you're starting to see how much functionality you can get easily, just locally already, without having to spend too much time training. LM Verify, this is very close to a classify. One of my teammates actually asked me to do this one because it was kind of like we always had to do like classify, and then we had to transform that the particular responses into zero ones, because we wanted to do some sort of other modeling and things like that. So Verify is very similar to classify, but Verify will default to zero and one, although you can customize what the yes or no or positive or negative, type of response would be. Like, so you can change it to positive or negative, you can change it to YN or things like that. So you can definitely customize it for Verify. But essentially it's a binary response, right? It's not like a sentiment or a classification that could be more. In this case, it's just two responses. Yeah, it happened or it didn't, or it is or it's not. Translate, this is a very interesting one because if I remember correctly, the Databricks version of this, you have to give it the target language and the source language, and very similar to how NLP works, right? Whenever we do translations with NLP, you have to give it a target language, and because it has to kind of figure how to read the concept what you're trying to say, and then translate that into the language, right? Um, so with LLMs, I see now that you, as I was experimenting with it, because I initially had a from to, right? I have from English into Spanish, and it actually didn't need it because the LLM would automatically basically recognize what kind of language it is, what kind of things it's saying, right? Because it's all tokenized. And then it just provides you the Spanish version of whatever was trying to be said. So I feel like it's really cool because all you have to do is to provide the target language and it just translates it. Um, the LM Verify. Is there a risk for hallucination in LM Verify? Well, yes, that's the main problem with any of this kind of thing. With anything that's LLM, the even the translation could technically have some sort of hallucination. Um, and also like the sentiment, for example, it could hallucinate thinking that the review or whatever was said, like the tweet, right, or the post was positive when it was actually negative because it kind of related some comment that it did. Maybe somebody quoted a book, right? That's very sad, but the quote, the best line off of it, just to kind of do a contrasting thing, even so it's like a sad quote from a sad book, but it was something positive in it, but it's so much weight on that negative part that it returns to negative. So it kind of hallucinates thinking that it's really talking about the book where it's really just quoting it. So yes, there's definitely, chances of that. What I would say too is that that's the thing, right? Like it could be also chucked to the same comparison in an NLP returning the wrong thing because you're training a very limited amount of data, so it's not being as effective as it should be. So that's the kind of price you have to pay with LLMs. The inaccuracies based on it's just getting confused on the connections of the data. Sorry, press twice here. So let me translate. Yeah. And yes, I did test it at several different languages. And I found like the eight languages that it's talking about, it definitely does the best translation. It does its best on the ones that are outside of it, but I kind of lost the ability to really verify on some of them that I tried. But I think it would, especially if you stay within the ones that are trained on for that particular model, you should be okay. LLM Custom, this is a lot of folks have been using LLM Custom because the ones that put in with Mall didn't really fit what they wanted to do. And I figured like, oh, maybe somebody would try to do something that is not here, so they can use custom. Apparently, a lot of folks like custom. So this right here is custom, which means that you can make up your own um, prompt. And that's the only problem here is that, of course, you'll see that there's a lot of little bitty things that you have to tell it, like return only the answer, no explanation. Because if you don't tell it that, it's going to say, for example, is this a happy customer? It's not going to say yes or no. It's going to say, oh, yes, this customer is very happy with the product. It's going to return like a big old sentence, right? And so you have to be very specific of what you want. You kind of start learning how to do the prompting, but um, it is there and it's very easy to use. The only thing that I haven't documented yet, for some reason, escaped my mind, and I didn't realize it until today, I didn't, is that if you had to add this X marker here, or whatever you want inside your prompt, this is basically the replacement for that line, right? So this is where it's going to put this, right? This is in place. So in all the iterations, this notation here, it doesn't have to be at the end. It could be in middle of thing or wherever you want it, where it makes sense for the LM to respond. But make sure to do that. And it's not in the documentation, but it'll be there soon. And as you can see here, because of it works really closely with dplyr, you can stack them and use multiple calls to the LLMs, and also use maybe even a dplyr command to filter some information. So it's all pipeable, and basically like Legos, you can just add very easily add them to your workflow. The other thing I was going to say with caching results. So two things, right? Like if you run a very big data set, let's say locally, it takes a long time, right? And typically, if you're like me, and if you're trying to do this all like in a Quarter doc or in a Markdown doc, you're writing up your results, your summarization. When I say summarization, I'm talking about like your observations of what the data says. You're doing all the write-up on the documentation, and you maybe change a little bit of code, so it has to re-render. And now it took 20 minutes for the data set to be processed, and then you run it again. You don't want it to run another 20 minutes, right? So by default, Mall will cache the results into a temporary folder that is only used during that session. That means that if you was to send if render over and over, the second rendering is going to be much faster because it's only going to rerun anything that's changed, right? So let's say, for example, if you run the LM sentiment and it returns the results, and then you rerun it again, it's going to be the exact same rows, right? The exact same prompt. So it's going to it's going to run real quick. But if you change the expected labels from positive, negative, neutral to just positive, negative, that's going to be a different call. And Mall recognizes it because it does a hash of each of the actual calls that you're sending. So if the hash is different, it's gonna say, oh, there's nothing here, and it's gonna run a brand new call to the LLM. So that helps in two things. The first thing is, of course, it takes less time when you re-render, and the other piece is if you're using an external, remote API like OpenAI or Gemini, things like that, using so many tokens, because every time you're rendering, it's gonna be using tokens. In this case, it's just using the cache and running real quick. What I do recommend, I'll show here in a minute, is to set your cache to a folder that's local to your project. CRAN doesn't like whenever I use a local folder, it tells me always to use a temp folder for things like these. So that's why I couldn't have it as a default. But definitely, if you're going to be working on a project, consider having a folder inside your the project. The other recommendation is to use an underscore in front of the name, like in this case, I have underscore my cache. That way, it's automatically Git ignored. So if you're using Git as well, it's not going to be committed because you don't want to commit that, right? You don't want this. This is a bunch of files. That's part you don't want to do because it interferes with the actual reproducibility, right? So definitely ignore it if unless there's some real important reason why you need it. You don't want to commit the cache. I'm gonna go. There's a question here, but I'm gonna go back to this question in a second because it's a little bit long. So I'll definitely come back. Thank you, Allison. I will review this question a bit. So and also if you don't want caching, there may be some cases that you're experimenting, right? With the actual LLM, then you could disable the caching. And all you have to do is to pass like this. So the same LLM use command that I showed you initially. So that again, it will set it for the entire session, or UR session. The other piece is that we have vector functions, right? So if you don't need to run this against a table that has all the data, if you only need to run it against like a single thing of text, you can use the vec variants. So instead of LLM sentiment, it's LLM vec sentiment, LLM vec translate, vec extract, and so forth. This also helps me a lot whenever I want to like confirm that it's returning what I was expecting. It provides for that functionality. That way you don't have to worry about creating a table, then running LLM sentiment, and then extracting through pool and just having just your character strings. The vec variant, it handles it for you. And another thing that vec does is that it will give you what it's actually going to send to your LLM. Like if you want to do some debugging because it's not responding like you expected, or it may not be giving you the right results that you were expecting, then if you add preview equals true, it will show you the actual call that it's making. Now, it's not making this exact call, right? It's actually constructing it as if it was making that call because there's different things I have to kind of go through inside the package. But if you want to test an equivalent, you can definitely use this. If this was like an external model that you're using like a remote API, it will say Elmer, or if you're using Olama via Elmer, it will say Elmer. So, all right. So before I go into demo, I'm going to read this question real quick. Yeah. So how it works? That's a very good question. So I'm going to answer this question real quick. I know, am I over time right now? Should I be where? Sorry. Let me see. So yes, I did experiment two ways, and this is actually this is a very important question that I feel like is worth responding to. So the thing is that do we do multiple calls, or do we do one call with all of like a lot or all of the data in it? Because you can say, hey, for the following data, go ahead and tell me if the person feels, you know, positive or negative about it, right? And then in the same, chat call, you would like send all of them. I actually experimented with that, and I think that's what you're referring to. You're right. It actually it becomes very unstable. I tried it with like 10, and then with less. I actually tried with 100, and then less and less, and the responses were never really consistent, even with a seed for some reason. So I found that actually sending each one was the most consistent way to get it. So yes, let's say you had 10 rows. In the case of the single shot prompt, it's doing 10 single shot prompts um, with all this information. If you're using like a remote API, like a Gemini, for example, that supports batch, and if it supports batch in the model, then it does one system call at the beginning of the chat, like if you think about it as a chat, and then each user call is going to be individual. So it's less tokens that you're sending for sure. But yes, I am sending one at a time. And of course, it's batch. So I'm sending as a batch. So you're definitely saving money there. Hope that answers the question. Okay. So let me go to here. So I'm going to load these. Like I mentioned, you can use let them use Llama 3.2, and it'll tell you right there on the output the folder that it's using for cache. As I said, it's better if you fix it. And for in this case, Llama, if you send anything else to LLM use that is not the preset arguments, like cache, silent, or force, then this, when in instance seed, will be passed to the Llama call. So this anything that's unique to that particular backend, like in Elmer or in Llama R, you'll be able to also kind of pass down some more, different types of things that you wanted to do. For example, if you want to change the temperature, would be another thing that you may want to do. So you can do it through here. In this case, as another thing I do recommend, set the seed, especially for Llama. That way you get more consistent results. And then, as you saw in the slides, I'm going to go a little bit faster because it looks like we have 13 minutes. And then we can just try them out. See, this is the one that was already in the demo. I'm going to reduce the size. Does this still look okay as far as the size? It's not too small. Good. Okay. So you notice that I'm going to change the options from happy, sad, and meh, neutral. And it actually does work. So as long as the LLM can kind of understand what you're trying for it to do, and I think this is what I love about doing this kind of webinars. I'm gonna do it in Spanish. I don't think I've tested this before. It should work. Oh, yeah, more or less. No sé, I guess it said didn't know. Tal vez. Let's try tal vez. No, there. Well, at least it got the neutral one. It thinks it's sad, this Spanish for happy, sad, or maybe. I guess it didn't really understand that. But yeah. So you see, that's really cool, right? Because it could be any response. Usually this takes a lot of coding for us to be able to get to that and fix them and fit them in that box. Another thing is that Llama, for some reason, loves capitalizing things. So that's another thing that we do here. Is a lot of times it's return capitalized. In Mall actually does the lower caps. The next I'm going to do the summarize, like you saw on the slide. So that's working here live. And these are the same ones from the slide. So you see them running. They're running pretty fast because I have a cache. Let me delete this cache. And I'm going to run it again. You see now it's taking. It took a little bit longer, see? These are going to take longer, a little bit longer now, see? So I'm extracting the product name, just like you saw. And we have the three ones that we saw earlier. And then here, for example, let's say that I want to extract the product name and what the main complaint or compliment, like what they didn't like or liked about it. So you can actually set the pred name for prediction and customize it, because if not, it'll do a dot something, right? In this case, dot extract. So I want to extract the product name, and you see the product name, and then the reason why they like. So it's a great screen, or it's slow because the laptop was slow, if you remember. And the washing machine was hard to figure, which to me is most washing machines, they're harder to figure. But anyway, so you see how you can actually do that, like two independent calls on the same data, in the same row. And the verify 1 or 0. And then what we saw here, we can actually use dplyr commands to do more things with it. Here we do the translation into Spanish, which you saw earlier, and here into French. And I will not be the judge today of that translation. I apologize if it's not correct, or at least fully correct. So I'll leave it here for a sec. Yes, Mall works well with Shiny. As far as being able to interact, like if you have a Shiny app that is going to interact with some input from a user, or somebody uploading a file or something like that, it does work well. But usually, what you need is for it to be integrated with an external, like a remote API, like OpenAI or Gemini or Anthropic. So yeah, it can definitely be done. And as far as the automating quarter reports, I'm not sure exactly what that means. So I don't know if you can add some more color there. And while you do that, I'll go ahead and go into this one. So in this case, we have multiple languages, right? Just like you would expect, like a tweet or a view, there are multiple languages. And then you can say for it to extract the language that it is, right? So it tells you what language. And so it's recognizing the language. And then you can do more things with it, like you can have extract the language and then give me only the ones that are not English, because we don't care about the ones that are English because we can understand them. And then we translate them into English, and then give me the sentiment of the translation, right? So you see, you can kind of do different things, different operations, NLP operation on the same data set, which again, to do this before, maybe 4 times, would have been a lot of work, like a lot of work. And then the custom prompt, you can see it running here. You see just what I said. Look at this. It says, choose the best answer between yes or no. And look at that. It didn't write yes, all lower caps. It wrote it all upper caps. For some reason, it just loves capitalization. So you can possibly do some mutate, right? Case when yes, then lowercase yes, or L case, or not even that. You can just say L case, the response, right? If you want to do that, like mutate dot red equals this. Now, am I imagining that? Is that the right? Did I forget the name of that function? Oh, bring R. We are to lower dot red, right? So you can do that, and thank you, Elson. Why did I forget about that? I guess I'm hungry. Okay, so you can do that kind of thing. Although Mall already does that for you. We make sure that all that's gate kept. All right, so let's say, for example, that especially for LM custom, you want specific results. Let's say I want yes and maybe, even though yes, I know that in the prompt says yes, no, but what if it returns something that wasn't valid, just like I mentioned before, it will return NAs for those. So anything that will return no, because we know it's going to say no, is outside of yes or maybe. So again, if for whatever reason it is returning something that you didn't expect, then it'll be an 8. And that's definitely a recommendation. If you have an LLM custom, unless it's something like an open text that you're expecting, if you're actually expecting some specific responses, definitely use valid resps, and it'll keep your data set safer, because as you imagine, R will warn you that there were NAs. And then the vector functions, we saw these earlier. Let me run these real quick. So this is one of the ones that, like I said, you can actually experiment. Native, and you can see the preview. And you can see it pretty. So even the seed, see how even the seed is being passed to Llama chat, Llama R chat. So yes. Let me go back. Um, in the actual presentation, I have a link to this. This is an actual use case that Mull was used for to do some actual analysis of the climate negotiation reporting. This was published some time back, but there's the link right there, so you can review it, and if you want to get some ideas. Also, if you have more resources, we have the website. And something that for some reason I forgot to mention this entire time is that Mall is actually the first package that we released literally the first day, both in R and Python. So if you have team members that are using Python, they can still use Mall. And they can use it against the Polar data set, which is basically just like pandas. It can be converted really easily. And it tells you right there, the website itself is integrated. So if you switch to Python, then the rest of this example you see will be Python or R, same as the references. There's references in R and references to Python. So you're more than welcome to do this. The only thing that the Python one doesn't do is the batching yet. So just gonna keep that in mind. And then the cheat sheets, sorry, one cheat sheet. I have there are not that many functions, so just know that one side is R and the other side is Python. So that's the fun of this particular cheat sheet. And you can use that. And then, sorry, didn't mean to do that. So yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate your attention today. Thank you for having me here today. This is the QR for the presentation and the talks, and I know we put this in the on the chat. So I'm gonna stop presenting now.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. I don't know if you have more questions. Please don't hesitate either to turn on your microphone or to leave them in the chat.
Our model bias address. I guess the best answer I could give is not. All it's doing is basically what you saw. It's sending that call saying a single prompt or a system prompt saying, hey, I need you to do this translation or this extraction or this classification. There's not much I can do for that, because the amount of customization I would have to do per different model, it would be a non-ending job. So it's a lot of this is going to be testing and seeing if it is not too unbiased as far as what it's returning. But there's no addressing here. Sorry. Well, again, the model that the model yes, it can be improved, but it's not something that Mol does. Mol, all it does is basically takes your table or your vector of multiple like text entries and runs them sequentially against the LLM. And that's basically all it does. So the models can be improved, but it will have to be on the modeling themselves. For example, Olema, if you go and kind of peruse through their different models, you see that there's several versions of the same model that people have done different fine tuning for different things, including those kinds of problems, addressing some of those problems. So maybe if you choose one of those models will be better. Again, it's something that you have to experiment with. How many models have I tried? I would say about 4 or 5. Uh, I think between Anthropic, OpenAI, did try Gemini, Llama, speaking Llama 3.2, 3.0, 3.1. So I mean, local models and the non-English text. So for the local models, it was only Llama that I really tried because when I tried like different ones, and I don't even remember the names, I was looking for like smaller ones. They were so bad that I just moved on to Llama was the best one, the best reviewed one. Um, so and for non-English text. I'm gonna say all of them, all the 3.0, 3.1, and 3.2. And the 3.2 always felt like the easiest, more reliable, I would say, the translation, especially when I translate to Spanish, which is my first language and the one I could really confirm. Oh, one question. Kaima, you mentioned something about automated quarter reports. I'm not sure what that meant. I don't know if I answered that question.
It was just a question that crossed my mind. Maybe one day I will use more in quarter reports. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how would that be integrated. I know that like the example that I showed you, it's a QMD file, so you can definitely have it in as a part of your analysis. But if you want to have it where it's automated, let's say in something like Posit Connect, for example, again, just like Shiny, you have to have the Quadro call because unless there's Solana installed locally in that particular server where it's being rendered, you have to like have it go somewhere else, like from let's say OpenAI to get the responses. Like GitHub, for example, if you want to automate in GitHub, right, as through a GHA, yeah, it would have to be. It can, but it has to be remote.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any more questions? I think yeah, there is plans to move.
Relation extraction in the future. You mean like between two fields, two different columns? Like we say, you have I'm trying to think, and they always come up. Like you have two columns, and you want to know. Let's say like you have it's in the verb. It is yes. So oh man, I can't remember now what the examples were, but yes, there's certain ones where you instead of sending just one column of the data set, you send two, and you want some sort of relation to be done. I actually thought about adding it, but went against it just because the package was already kind of becoming really big for me as far as the project was. But if you want to open an issue in the repo for Mall, which is linked in the main website, and I can link it here too, and give me some examples of what you're looking for, I'll be happy to look at it because I kind of stopped working on it since I didn't really have that many requests or issues to have one that I need to fix. But I figured that if there was specific cases, will make sense to add. I can add it to the for sure. Add it to the package for sure. No, thank you, Alison. Thank you for reminding me of that function name.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
Okay. I think you are done with questions. Yeah, thank you very much again, Edgar. That was so great. Sorry, you have one more.
One more
question.
question.
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, that is a great question. So you can definitely call the model directly, right? The issue is that you can actually do this in batch. Like if you want to do something like Elmer, for example, you can actually do some of that batching, but you have to put everything in a JSON file or some sort of formatting and then send it that way. It takes some time to set up. And then the responses, you have to kind of figure how you integrate it with your workflow. What Mol does is kind of makes it, like I said, ergonomic, where you just call a function that you can pipe into other things. Like I figured that it would be rare whenever you only have one call, right? It's usually you do the call to the LLM and then you do more transformations to it. If that's what you're doing, the model is definitely going to be your friend. But you're right, you can definitely do the calls directly. If you're only doing the one thing and you want more control over how it's being done, absolutely. It would be a better option for you to do that. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me and inviting me. It was really fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation. It was very interesting, Edgar.
Yeah. Okay, so I think you can end up with the meetup. Thank you, everyone. So we make sure to share the recording video on YouTube. We'll let you know about it. Thank you, everyone, for your presence. Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.